Hi everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. My very capable assistant Bryn is here with me, and her mom is behind the camera, and today we're going to show you a very easy meal that is comfort food. And I'm using this ugly looking roaster. This roaster was my mother's, and it was part of many of our family dinners. She wanted as a prize for having a Tupperware party, probably 40 years ago or more. But she used it for doing, especially, she liked to do roasts, and she would do roasts in that, or ribs at Christmas, or whatever. So although it looks pretty bad, I can't quite part with it. And that's the story if you're wondering why I'm using this ugly, I think it was called Harvest Gold roaster. We're going to be making an easy beef stew today. And first of all, I would say that the meat you use really doesn't matter a whole lot. Don't worry about getting a really good, don't get a really good cut of beef. And I would suggest that you not buy the meat at the store that says stew meat. When I compared prices, the meat that I bought is round steak, and it was $3.48 a pound this week, and the cut up stew meat was $5.98. So it didn't take me long to cube it, and then I was able to get rid of any fat or anything that I wanted to take off of it. At the outset, I would say this is a guidance. The recipe will be available for you, but it's a guide, because making stew is not rocket science, and it is not like baking a cake where you need to have exact ingredients. You can kind of, especially when I try a new recipe, I usually try to follow it the first time. The next time I just kind of go with whatever I want to do. So on this platter, I have stew meat, white potatoes, carrots, and sweet potatoes. And sweet potatoes are not in the original recipe. Bryn, do you want to scoop that in? So we'll put those into the roaster. Good job. Also, I have celery and onions, and the recipe doesn't say that we need garlic, but I have 2 cloves of garlic minced with my onions, so you can put those in with the celery. Now, I would say this is a recipe that's very good for cleaning out your refrigerator. If you have bits of vegetables that didn't get eaten and they're left over and in the refrigerator, go ahead, throw them in, whether it's peas, corn, beans, whatever, and it works just fine. I also have a can of diced tomatoes, and we'll put those in. This is also not in the recipe, but I like to throw in a splash of red wine. If I can get it open, I will do that. Just give it a splash. It adds to the flavor. It's good for the beef. And Bryn, would you like to pour? Yeah, you can do either one of those.
How much?
Just sprinkle some salt in. We don't use a lot of salt in our house, but
Is that good?
that's good for now. And then you can put a little pepper in. I just sprinkle it till I can see it. And we don't use much salt, but we do use a lot of pepper. And then also some beef broth. Just pour, I think, most of that. What's in there? All right, and then we'll just stir it together.
Do you want me to finish this off?
Sure, you go ahead and finish it off. Good job. Then we will just, do you want to stir it, or would you like me to do that?
You can stir it.
All right. I stir it before I put it into the oven. And the one thing that we didn't put in right now are the bouillon cubes. And I would use 2 or 3 bouillon cubes. That also is not in the original recipe, but it adds a lot of flavor to the broth, and you want a really good gravy. So what we do now is we'll put a lid on the roaster. We will cover it, put it in the oven at 325, and it can be in the oven for 3 hours. I've had times when I've done it at 300 degrees, so then you can leave it longer, and you really can't go wrong. And this is what it looks like before it's baked, and after it's done, we'll show you what it looks like. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. 3 hours later, our stew is done. There's nothing like warm bread on the table, and what I have here is just part of a loaf of French bread. While the stew cooks, we have made pudding, and this is butterscotch pudding. It's dark colored because my brown sugar was dark. It is not that much harder to make pudding from scratch than it is to make instant pudding, and the flavor, there is no comparison. It tastes really good, and it actually is a good for you dessert because it's mostly milk and eggs. And so we'd be ready to sit down, no fuss, no muss, and welcome to dinner.